Yeah, I still got directions. We're still gonna get there. So we're live.
Hi.
So do you consent to this live stream?
I do.
Excellent. And what would you like to talk about?
I don't know. You got any prompts?
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 Let's see.
Let's see.
Well, we were just talking about Trump.
Yeah.
So let's continue that.
Okay. Well.
So government and how to run government. And I had just mentioned the GoFundMe page, and then you had mentioned, people have a GoFundMe page.
People have GoFundMe pages just to like survive now.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It seems like there should be ways for a government to care for all of its citizens. It is a really big country. But I wonder, I don't know, I think a lot of times I think we might be going back into the age of more like underground communities, or maybe like a lot more like small village kind of like operating on their own rules, because I kind of feel like maybe we're going back to the ways of like the Old West, where things can't really be that enforced and people are just kind of taking it upon themselves to live the way they want to live. Because there are a lot of communities like that. Because because the country's like so big, there's not a whole lot of enforcement for a lot of things.
And it's really hard to have a broad-based system of rules about construction.
Yeah, and
right?
Like all over like the country, there are like kind of like there are small militia groups growing, which is what freaks me out. Unless some of those groups are like hippie militant groups or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, which I think probably exists. But there are definitely like Christian right, like small militia family systems happening like all over.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of groups that are just operating sort of like underground, or like, without any kind of enforcement, and just have their own rules and have their own like governance. And I think that could happen with like progressive groups too. Like I think that like there's nothing holding people back from
just moving to an area.
Yeah, like building their own communities, like kind of doing off the grid stuff. Like that's always been a sort of fantasy of mine, because I've seen it in a few places, like self-sustaining communities. You just have to have the right people, and you have to like make it not turn into a cult.
Yeah,
it can't be just like one guy that's telling everyone what to do.
Yeah, because like the whole Messiah complex thing is not cool.
Yeah, and I've seen that happen. Like I had a uncle who joined a commune in Santa Fe, like in the 80s, and it totally turned into a cult, and he got like kicked out.
Oh wow!
But because the leader dude felt like nobody should belong to each other, and then my uncle and this other woman like had a baby together, and they wanted to be together, but the leader dude like wouldn't let them just like be together, so they kicked my uncle out, and then the kid had like severe trauma from that, because suddenly his dad is like gone, and he's like ousted from their community.
Yeah, because that's like, oh, there goes my dad, and he's doing nothing wrong, and all of a sudden he's gone.
Yeah, and this kid, like, he's like in his 20s now, and he's a total badass. But when he was really little, then his mom was like, I can't actually handle being like just taking care of this kid. Like, I'm gonna make the dad take him. So my uncle took him, and then they like stayed at our house for like a little while, and if my uncle wanted to go out and I had to babysit my cousin, he would cry nonstop for hours until his dad came home.
Wow.
Which I haven't. I've taken care of a lot of kids, and I've only had to deal with that with one kid who had like a single mom, and I got his like crying to cut down from like half an hour to like 5 minutes with stuff. But with I was a lot younger when I had to deal with my cousin doing that, but He was deeply traumatized.
Yeah. Yeah, because, like, he's probably reliving the day that his dad got kicked
Yeah,
out.
because when you're little
Yeah.
and a parent leaves and doesn't come back, you don't know if that's going to happen every time. You don't know if when he leaves, if he's ever coming back again. But anyway, so there was like some cult mentality there. But I think that there's better ways of creating communities. It just has to deal with the right people, I guess. I don't know. I wonder if it's possible. Because as you get older, you kind of don't want to deal with people.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, go do your thing, just don't
Yeah.
hurt me.
But I've lived in like collective type situations, and it is nice to have like shared responsibilities and people you can rely on, and that kind of support. And the idea is that it makes everyone's lives a lot easier. But then it's also like the whole community is as good as its like weakest link. So everyone has to be.
Oh, so everybody's got to be on their game all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
It's hard to micromanage people, right? And then, like, the whole point of being in the community is that you don't have to do that.
Yeah, and that it's self-governing, and that there's no hierarchy. Because that's the thing too. Ooh, I know something I could talk about.
Okay.
Like on the topic of hierarchy and just kind of these changes that we're going through now. There's this like, you know how in 2012 there was the whole thing where they were saying Mayan shamans said that the world was going to end in 2012.
Yeah.
But then what the Mayan shaman were actually saying was that it was the transition from like the fourth realm into the fifth realm of the sun.
So it's the current end of the world, but then there's going to be another world.
That it was this transitory state where, like, in the fifth realm of the sun, that the ether was going to take form, and the ether is like an idea of like the space between stars and space. Like, it's the idea of this.
It's like
non-matter.
subspace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also there was this change at that time. That was the when we switched from the Piecian, was it the Piecian age to the Aquarian age, the age of Aquarius, that whole thing. And that transition had to do with going from hierarchical civilization building to where it's like horizontal, like where civilizations kind of get built on this like idea of hierarchy. And that Piscean age started in like 1 AD. So like our common era was the Piscean age. And then in 2012 we switched to the Aquarian age, which involved non-hierarchical systems forming and more of like a lateral
it's a decentralized form of...
and kind of an equalization. And that's why in the 60s everyone was like Age of Aquarius, and why all these like social action things were being done in like the name of the Age of Aquarius, because it was like the great equalizer. So this idea that in 2012 it was the switch between the fourth realm of the sun to the fifth realm of the sun, where the creation, the ether became matter, and also the Piscean age to the Aquarian age happened. And my theory is that the idea of the ether turning into like matter had to do with the internet, and why certain things have become tangible through the internet, and like what our reality is based on now could make something out of nothing. Like, I don't know.
Well, because people believe in virtual reality.
Yeah,
right?
but
Like
also, I have a job because of the internet. You have a job because of the internet. Like, I'm getting to my job because of the internet. Like,
Yeah.
there's
And
some
I'm-
like tangible things and like very like kind of mundane things that are real because of the internet. And it also is like this equalizing force in a way, or it's supposed to be. But even just the fact that like we have a president who like tweets shit
Yeah.
is so insane.
Yeah, because he's, you know, manipulating the internet to manipulate people.
But everyone can use Twitter.
Yeah.
So, and I think that like a lot of the crazy shit that's happening comes when there's like a shift. Like there's just like a transitory phase that takes getting used to. Like the old system is not, it does not like the new system.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's why there's like this pushback. So as we progress further and further to like the great like equalizing, because that doesn't have to do with just like equalizing people. It's like nature and people and building. Like if everything is equalized, I mean, there's no there's nothing's more powerful than anything else.
Uh-huh.
So we're all at like, I don't know, the same level.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Which
well,
is
it's interesting,
hard for
right?
people
Because
to deal with.
like Trump obviously represents Piecian, right? In this,
Old
and he's
world, like
yeah, and he is totally that old codger that doesn't know shit. But it's not like he can't figure out how to type stuff, right? And the guy's got a like so short of an attention span that Twitter is perfect for him, right? So he knows like how to use it, what it's meant for, and will use it, obviously, to, you know, threaten nations as he has done. But to assume that Trump understands email will be something else entirely, right? Like, wouldn't you say that's correct? Because like people understand, oh yeah, you write something and you send this message and then it goes through, you know, God knows how many different places before it actually gets to its destination. And it's just like the mail system is, right? You don't know which towns your mail that you send your grandma goes through, but you know it gets there. And the people who are building these decentralized systems, like, they're so far ahead in terms of science understanding that like you can't stop them, you know. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is entirely decentralized.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and that's the whole, I mean, that's why there's such like hope for cryptocurrency, is because it is decentralized, non-hierarchical currency.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is also why it's difficult for a lot of people to understand.
Yeah. Also, too, like a lot of people, yeah, it's decentralized, but that's not the most astonishing thing about it. The most astonishing thing about cryptocurrency is that you can't change it if it was set up properly. So
Yeah.
that's not something that Trump's going to agree with, because Trump's all about changing the facts.
Well, yeah, because he wants to be able to,
Yeah.
manipulate what's real.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it comes down to like concrete information, like numbers. So it's not like it's not able to. You can't like argue with it.
Yeah, because like anyone can check what the truth is, right? I was thinking about that, applying that kind of decentralization and immutability to Twitter, right? Having crypto Twitter. And what does that look like, right? Like, yeah, you would have guys like Trump, but then you would have like people posting videos that obviously post the truth, and you couldn't change it.
Sure.
Right? Like, you couldn't doctor that video.
But people don't even like believe their own eyes.
Yeah.
These days.
That's true too.
You could present anything and be like, even with like the with any kind of hearings, it's like and even just where you're like, I'm seeing it with my own eyes. Like, why are these people seeing something different? Like,
Yeah.
what is people's like own interpretation of what they see, and like, why is it so different from what I see?
Mhm.
But there's just like this idea of perspective. It is kind of like frightening because there's no. I mean, we're living in a time where like the and like truth are being muddled and
Yeah, they're
and like taken for.
they're constantly under siege.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. And like that's shaky enough, right? If you didn't have all the other crap that's going on, it's shaky enough just to have the truth that you think is valid and correct be attacked.
Yeah. Well, it's why it's breaking down a lot of these people who have been seeing, because there have been a lot of strides with equal rights. Like we do have, let's see, like RuPaul's Drag Race has won like an Emmy, and like there's more visibility when it comes to like gay people, and there's more visibility for women, and there's more visibility for like non-gender binary people, like, and a lot of strides have been made with that. But then there's this there's always this backlash of people who are still stuck in what they think is like the way that things should be.
Yeah. I think part of that too is that, for millions of years, things didn't change.
Yeah.
Right? And for thousands of years, human civilization didn't change at all. From the time humans figure out how to grow grain on fields and then work metal, like after figuring out how to work metal and build pots and pans and swords and things like that, like nothing fundamentally changed for 4,000 years. And then all of a sudden we have computers and technology everywhere, and it's spread across the whole planet. And now the people who are predisposed to think about life in a traditional manner are throwing a fit because nothing looks like that anymore. Right. And I think they're trying to.
Yeah, but it's also like, okay, well, we're also not like going through the streets with a wagon, like keeping dead bodies that are dead from the bubonic plague.
Yeah.
Either. So like, there's a lot of things where it's like, great, like I'm these times that we live in are so good.
Yeah, they are really good, right?
Whenever I feel bad about shit now, I always just keep that image in my mind of just like somebody walking through a street with like a wagon of dead bodies. Because we've come a long way.
Yeah.
Although a lot of like medical practices are not even that different from like the medieval times. But there's still we are not using like leeches anymore. But there's still a lot of things where the advancement, it hasn't lined up with the advancement in technology for some reason.
I think that's just people haven't gotten around to it yet.
Yeah.
Because it's really hard to get a medical degree, and then the only way you would introduce change into the medical field is if you yourself were a doctor, and then you build something new and cool that works better, and then you market that, right? So straight, okay, cool. So because of that, I think people and how long it takes to be a doctor, doctors aren't so good at being entrepreneurs.
Right.
And yeah, they can build cool stuff and they can make cool things, but unless it's substantially better than what you currently had, it doesn't really get a lot of traction. Whereas a doctor / entrepreneur would be like, hey, this procedure is a little bit different than how you've been doing it, but you save 10% on your costs. And they could really figure out how to sell that better than a normal doctor would, who's just like, yeah, I built this and it works and I showed my friends, but they weren't really that convinced, and now, and now it's not going anywhere. Right? So I think the fact that it's so hard to be a doctor kind of, in some ways, in this way specifically, it hurts the profession, expand into things that they could otherwise do fairly easily, I would think. Right?
Yeah.
At least that's what makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So what were you thinking of when, doctors haven't changed certain things? What things haven't they changed?
I mean, you still kind of just have people like sitting in a big room in beds and like with windows open. I don't know. It just seems like there's not a lot of, there's a lot of technology that's changed things. But ultimately, like, I'm not sure people know really that much more about how things work. Like, people have an idea of how anesthesia works, but apparently they don't totally know how it works.
Like blocking the pain receptors?
Yeah. Like, they're not quite sure, like, why it does that. I read something about anesthesia and how it's still kind of like, it makes sense that it works, but people aren't, like, professionals still aren't really sure exactly why. So that's kind of weird. But anyways, I mean, I don't know. I guess you just gotta be positive or like optimistic about like the things of the new era coming through, and like, but it's definitely tumultuous because we're in like a transitory period where the ether has become matter, and and power is getting destabilized, or like there's like a hierarchical systems that are breaking down. But
also too, like, those systems wouldn't break down if they weren't vulnerable, right?
Sure.
So the fact that these systems are breaking down means that we have to figure something out that's better, and
hopefully,
that will last a lot longer, be more effective, or maybe just one of those things. Maybe it just lasts longer, or maybe it's just more effective. It doesn't last as long, but it's more effective.
Things can work, like when people are seeing, like with cryptocurrency, how things can become decentralized. That is a positive outlook for things of this nature succeeding. But as long as there's still just the old guard standing by.
This is it?
I think this is it.
Cool.
Hopefully they don't charge more.
Alright.
Well, that was enjoyable.
Well, thank you very much.
I kind of like made up for my whole day of sitting around or feeling sorry for myself.
I'm glad it worked for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I felt good about it.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. And thank you for watching. Hopefully give me a like and a share. That would be awesome.